You know what I love? Rocks. Amonkhet has a lot of them. Pretty ones too. Deep blue stones known as Lazotep. It's very mysterious, this substance. The cartouches are made from it, and Bolas has the Anointed mine it day in and day out. Plus, apparently the spin down die from the Amonkhet pre-release was made from it, but it was a fake. Cheap Wizards of the Coast. So what's a rock have to do with the lore or cards of Hour of Devastation? Have you ever wondered what it means to rise eternal, at least to Nicol Bolas? Or what happens to all the worthy? Well, we do know that the cartouches are used for control. Curious. So let's explore Lazotep and the new cards and mechanics inspired by it in the Hour of Devastation. You'll see it's a lot more than just a shiny rock. First, a little backstory. What is Lazotep, and how do we even know about it? Strangely enough, it only appears in a few cards' flavor text in Amonkhet. Shimmerscale Drake mentioned the mineral with, "They are drawn by the brilliant blue glint of the mineral Lazotep from the mines below." Not much context there outside of the stone's color and that it attracts drakes. We see blocks of the material being hauled up in Sacred Excavation, with the flavor text giving us our first connection to Lazotep and the Anointed. The Anointed work the mines without pause, their cartouches instilling them with tireless purpose. And finally we get another look in Stone Quarry, again linking the rock to the Anointed, mentioning that entire valleys have been formed by the mummies laboring to find veins of Lazotep. So with that really limited knowledge, we know for a fact that Lazotep is important enough to be mined continuously by the Anointed. Who controls the Anointed? The gods of Amonkhet. Who influenced the gods? Nicol Bolas. Thus, Lazotep is important to the Dragon Planeswalker's plans for the plane. We also have a connection between Lazotep and the cartouches worn by the Anointed, the devices used to control their behavior. If these and all cartouches on Amonkhet are made from this material, then it's safe to say that Lazotep is crucial in controlling the subjects of the God Pharaoh, namely the Anointed and the Worthy. Remember, to be deemed worthy, you have to pass the trial of the 5 gods, collecting each cartouche and, this is important, die. Specifically die by the Spear of Hazoret, who then sends your body to the necropolis beyond the gate to the afterlife to await paradise when Nicol Bolas returns, which we all know is a bunch of hoopla. So how does Lazotep impact the worthy stored within the necropolis? A fate Deru just barely escaped? Well, let's take a look at someone who was already deemed worthy during Amonkhet. Nehab. Striking Minotaur, right? Strong and proud. Let's see what he looks like as he rises Oh my god, what is that? Well, I guess that's Nehab, now the Eternal. 4/6 legendary creature zombie Minotaur warrior for 3 generic and double red. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, add 1 mountain to your mana pool for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. It also has a new mechanic, one tied to Lazotep, Afflict. And Nehab the Eternal has Afflict 3. Whenever this creature becomes blocked, defending player loses 3 life. So the card itself is really interesting. Nehab loses the Swamp affiliation and the Minotaur camaraderie for a super aggressive, more streamlined feel. This card is great because it synergizes so well with itself, meaning it can change a game no matter the board state. It has a weird ramping effect we don't normally see in red very often that helps feed an aggressive deck that just wants to keep things going. Its fat body means it can block and be blocked pretty favorably, but of course your opponent's not gonna feel very good blocking because of that Afflict 3. They prevent only 1 damage and still give you that minimum of 3 extra mana. Only sad thing is, I wanted this worthy state to continue the Minotaur synergy set by his more alive counterpart. Maybe Minotaur Tribal just was never meant to be a thing in Standard. Regardless, Nehab the Worthy is a really strong solo red legendary. It may find a hard time fitting into current Standard decks, but something this interesting is definitely going to be tested. Limited though, this is a pretty nice bomb. Big body, self-synergizing, not too expensive, it's really good. And yes, it'll be great in Commander too. If not as a Commander, then at least as a ramping stick with a big butt. As you can tell from the difference, the Worthy are covered in a nice coating of blue, shiny material, Lazotep. This is what happens to the Worthy during the Hour of Devastation. I mean, how can you argue when a character literally titled the Worthy comes back covered in Lazotep, right? And how do we know the worthy or eternal are controlled by Nicol Bolas? Look at that flavor text. This is what glory looks like. The words of Nicol Bolas himself. Yep, I think that's clear enough. We see a running theme for these worthy returned as Eternals. They're all zombies, covered in Lazotep, and have Afflict as an ability, such as Khenra Eternal and Wildfire Eternal. Note the Eternal in both of these cards' names. Khenra Eternal being a 2/2 for 1 generic and 1 black with Afflict 1, and Wildfire Eternal being the better zombie jackal as a 1/4 for 3 generic and 1 red, with Afflict 4, and whenever Wildfire Eternal attacks and isn't blocked, you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your hand without paying its mana cost. Khenra Eternal is a noteless common, nothing special, but Wildfire Eternal is really interesting. It's a pretty weak body for 4 mana, but your opponent takes more damage when they actually block it because of Afflict. Regardless, they're gonna wanna block in order to kill it, because the more times it's allowed to attack, the more free spells you can play. I can see this in some Izzet decks in Standard, spells win and everything like that, but Limited, it's a tad bit niche. Only really good in a deck where you get a lot of spells. If you don't have that, then your opponent's just gonna let it swing in for a meek 1 damage. Not great. Of course, Khenra Eternal has the flavor text which brings this all together. For many years, servant mummies toiled in the mines to extract Lazotep. The emergence of the Eternals revealed the sacred substance's true purpose. See? What did I tell ya? Now we move on to the second mechanic tied to Lazotep, Eternalize, which is the process of making a new Eternal, which we know is a worthy dead covered in Lazotep. Steadfast Sentinel, 2/3 human cleric for 3 generic and 1 white with vigilance is a good example of this. You can Eternalize this card, which means you pay the cost when the creature is in their graveyard, so 4 generic and double white, you get it back as a stronger Eternal. The thing about Eternalize is it's basically like Embalm, but better because Bolas. It costs more, but the token will always be a 4/4, which is higher than its original state, and is a black zombie in addition to its other types. That's the only difference between Embalm and Eternalize. Embalm makes Anointed, Eternalize make Eternal, which are in the service of Bolas. 2 rares with Eternalize include Adorned Pouncer and Dreamstealer. Adorned Pouncer, yes, even cats can serve Bolas. He's apparently a cat and dog people person? Is a 1/1 cat with double strike for 1 generic and 1 white. Kinda don't like 1/1s with double strike, means you gotta buff them in order to get value, then your opponent can just 2 or 3 for 1 you. Not fun. Of course, the payoff is to Eternalize it, so it's a 4/4 zombie cat with double strike. For 5 mana in the middle or late stage of the game, that's pretty useful. Not my favorite pick, especially in Limited, but at least it does something later. Standard, maybe cat tribal? Probably not though. Dreamstealer has a lot more going on, being a 1/2 human wizard for 2 generic and 1 black. Menace, Eternalize for 4 generic and double black, and whenever Dreamstealer deals combat damage to a player, that player discards that many cards. So obviously a super powerful effect that can just wreck your opponent's hand. But on a 1/2 body with Menace, that's hilarious, it's not gonna do much, especially on turn 3. This is a card that really benefits from Eternalize and becoming a 4/4 with these abilities, although it costs a pretty penny at 6 mana. A 4/4 Menace is really nice though. Your opponent may be better equipped to deal with it before they discard 4 cards from their hand, which could be a game ender. You could use it early and pump it for a devastatingly large discard early, but still, removal really has this guy's number, and like the cat, Magma Spray is just a perfect counter. Might be good in some Dimir control deck in Standard, but for Limited, I see it as a mediocre pick that's only really great in the late game at a time when a sneeze doesn't stop it. Of course, all of those pale in comparison to the Lazotep God, the Scarab God, who looks to be covered in, you guessed it, Lazotep, and has some nice corresponding abilities. The Scarab God is a 5/5 legendary creature god, shocker, for 3 generic and Dimir colors, that being blue and black. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses X life and you scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. Pay 2 generic and Dimir colors again, exile target creature card from a graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. Being a god, of course it comes back to your hand when it dies at the beginning of the next end step. Not indestructible like the old Amonkhet gods, but close enough. Now this card, just like the other Forgotten Gods, to me anyway, seems insanely good. Now I know you guys like to think that I don't care about Commander, but I hear you out there, and this guy's just gonna be bonkers as a zombie commander. This is just insane value on a card. It really shows how amazing these gods are to the old Amonkhet ones. Though it's not a zombie itself, it sure has a great payoff for having them in your deck, and it can create its own through its own Eternalize mechanic. Although these are much better than your average Eternalize because it's only 4 mana and it hits all creatures in all graveyards. Just think about stealing your opponent's Locust God, for example. Yeah, that's gonna be really good. In Standard, I can see this easily going into zombie decks. It's just a great passive way to reanimate stuff as well as being a decent body for a decent price, while also scrying and dealing damage based on the zombies you have. I mean, I just don't see why you wouldn't run it. And Limited, this is of course amazing again. A great bomb that steals stuff from the graveyard, stacking the board in your favor, giving you that life swing, giving you the scry engine. It's great. Now, it does have a downside in Limited, shocker I know, but most zombies are black-white, not blue, so the colors are a little off here. And it's true, the more zombies you have, the better it becomes, so it really pulls a draft in that direction, and it's certainly not guaranteed. That being said, it makes its own zombies. Everything I said is still true, and it's a first pick bomb for me. Oh, and how do we know this is the Eternalize King? How's it connected to Lazotep, you may ask? Well, the scores of blue zombies in the background is a pretty dead giveaway. It's obvious that Lazotep has helped shape the world of Amonkhet, especially in how Bolas has used this material to control his army of Worthy and Eternal. A simple rock bends the Anointed to serve their masters, and causes great heroes to blindly follow a false god. Looks like, on Amonkhet anyway, not all stones are created equal. So there you go guys, the newest spoilers and mechanics brought to us by a precious gemstone. If you're covered with this stuff, you'll be found worthy one way or another. Anyway, thanks for joining me here at Aether Hub HQ. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Aether Hub here on YouTube. If you enjoyed this video, support the channel and all our creators by liking, sharing, and of course subscribing so you never miss our latest video. You yourself can become an honorary Hub member by visiting our store at www.aetherhubtcg.com. We have a special pre-order event happening right now where you can snag some of the best deals on packs available. Afterwards, consider visiting our friends over at 5 Color Combo. They have an amazing free app that I use to practice my limited picking skills along with custom art playmats and tokens. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, never be afraid to feed your obsession. I'll see you guys next time.